In the heart of Miami's bustling South Beach, there lived a street musician named Jake Rodriguez. Jake had been playing his worn-out acoustic guitar on Lincoln Road for 3 years. He barely made enough money to feed himself, let alone his unexpected roommate. A brilliant green Amazon parrot named Benny Jake had found Benny 2 years ago, injured and alone in an alley behind a closed-down music store. The bird had a broken wing and was near death. And Jake, despite his own financial struggles, nursed Benny back to health, spending his last $50 on veterinary bills. What Jake did not know was that this single act of kindness would completely change both their lives forever, because Benny was not just any ordinary parrot. He possessed an extraordinary gift, perfect pitch, and an uncanny ability to mimic not just voices, but the emotions behind them. While most parrots could repeat words, Benny could capture the soul of a song, the heartbreak in a voice, the joy in a melody. Every morning, Jake would set up his small amplifier and open guitar case on the corner of Lincoln Road and Washington Avenue. Benny would perch on a small stand beside him, sometimes squawking along to Jake's music. Most tourists found it amusing a struggling musician with his colorful sidekick. But everything changed on a humid Tuesday morning. In July, Jake was playing Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen, one of his favorite songs for the early morning crowd. As he reached the emotional climax of the song, something magical happened. Benny began to sing along, not in his usual parrot voice, but in a hauntingly beautiful tone that blended perfectly with Jake's guitar. The few tourists passing by stopped in their tracks. Within minutes, a small crowd had gathered. Phones came out, people started recording this incredible duet between man and bird. Benny's voice had an otherworldly quality. It was as if he understood every word, every emotion. In the song, an elderly woman with tears in her eyes dropped a $20 bill into Jake's guitar case. She whispered, "I have not heard anything that beautiful in years." By the end of the song, Jake had earned more money in 5 minutes than he usually made in an entire day. But more importantly, he realized something powerful. Benny was not just a pet, he was a musical prodigy. That same evening, Jake discovered that their performance had been uploaded to TikTok by at least a dozen different people. The videos were spreading like wildfire across social media platforms. The hashtag #SingingParrot was trending on Twitter, and their Instagram following grew from 0 to 50,000 in just 24 hours. The most popular video was posted by a food blogger named Sarah Chen, who happened to be visiting Miami. It had already reached more than 2 million views. The comments were unbelievable. People wrote things like, "This parrot has more talent than most artists on the radio." Others said, "Someone needs to sign this bird to a record deal." And one person wrote, "I am crying. This is the most beautiful thing I have ever heard." Jake was overwhelmed. He had never experienced anything close to this level of attention. His phone was buzzing non-stop with messages from reporters, talent agents, and record labels. The next morning, he returned to Lincoln Road to see if the magic could happen again. This time, he was prepared. He had printed small flyers with their new Instagram handle. Benny and Jake, when they arrived at their usual spot, there was already a crowd waiting. Word had spread through the local community, and people were now coming specifically to see the singing. Parrot Jake decided to try something different. He started playing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and once again, Benny's voice joined in with a quality that gave everyone goosebumps. But this time, something even more extraordinary happened. A young girl in a wheelchair, no more than 8 years old, began to cry, not from sadness, but from joy. She had been born with a speech impediment and rarely spoke, but Benny's singing seemed to reach something deep inside her. She began humming along, and for the first time in her life, her voice was clear and melodic. The crowd was mesmerized. Parents hugged their children. Couples held each other tighter. It felt as if Benny's voice carried a healing power. 3 days later, while Jake was practicing with Benny in his small apartment, his phone rang. The caller ID showed a number from Los Angeles. A professional-sounding woman asked, "Is this Jake Rodriguez, the owner of the singing Parrot?" Jake replied nervously, "Yes, that is me." She introduced herself. "My name is Amanda Wells. I am a talent scout for Skybound Records. I have been watching your videos, and I want to discuss a potential recording contract." Jake nearly dropped the phone. Skybound Records was one of the biggest labels in the country. Artists like Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran had recorded with them. Stunned, he said, "I am sorry, could you repeat that?" Amanda continued, "We would like to fly you and Benny to Los Angeles next week for an audition. We will cover all expenses and provide a 5-star hotel. Are you interested?" Jake looked at Benny. The Parrot squawked, "Hit me, baby, one more time," in a perfect Britney Spears impression. Jake laughed through his nerves and answered, "We will be there." The flight to Los Angeles was Benny's first time on an airplane. Jake worried about how he would handle it, but Benny seemed to enjoy every second. He entertained the passengers by singing snippets of famous songs in the voices of the original artists. When they landed at LAX, they were greeted by a chauffeur holding a sign that read, "Benny and Jake Skybound Records." Jake felt like he was living inside a movie. Their hotel suite in Beverly Hills was the most luxurious place Jake had ever seen. Benny perched on the balcony railing, singing proudly to the city below. The next morning, they arrived at the Skybound Records headquarters, a modern glass building in the heart of Hollywood. Amanda Wells met them in the lobby. She was sharply dressed with kind eyes and warm energy. She told them, "In 20 years in this business, I have never seen anything like what you two do. The emotional connection Benny creates with audiences is unprecedented." They entered a state-of-the-art recording studio where several executives were waiting. Jake felt nervous, but Benny was calm. He preened his feathers and looked at the expensive equipment with curiosity. Amanda smiled. "All right, let's hear what you have got." Jake began playing "Amazing Grace." Benny joined in, his voice filled the room. The studio acoustics made the sound richer and more powerful. The executives were visibly moved. One of them, the company president, a man known for being tough, actually had tears in his eyes. When the performance ended, the room fell silent for a long moment. Finally, the president spoke. His voice was unsteady. "That was extraordinary. We want to offer you a recording contract." The recording process was unlike anything Jake could have imagined. Skybound Records spared no expense. They brought in top producers, sound engineers, and musicians to work with them. The challenge was capturing Benny's unique gift in a way that could translate to recorded music. Benny was a natural in the studio. He seemed to know instinctively when to come in with harmonies, when to take the lead, and when to add small touches that elevated each song to something magical. They decided to record an album of covers. Classic songs reimagined with Benny's otherworldly voice. The track list included Hallelujah, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, What a Wonderful World, Bridge Over Troubled Water, and The Sound of Silence. Each session brought new surprises. During The Sound of Silence, Benny added whistling that sounded like haunting wind. For What a Wonderful World, he layered in bird calls, rustling leaves and soft rain, creating a soundscape that carried listeners to a peaceful garden. The most challenging song was Bohemian Rhapsody. The Queen classic required multiple vocal parts. Nobody believed Benny could handle it, but he stunned everyone by shifting between voices and characters in perfect timing, creating a one-parrot performance worthy of Freddie Mercury himself. Word about the album leaked to the press. Entertainment Weekly ran a cover story, "The Bird That Is About to Rock the Music World." The Tonight Show called, inviting them for a live performance. Their Tonight Show appearance was set for the week of the album's release. Jake was terrified national television live in front of millions. But Benny seemed excited. He spent the days before the show rehearsing and learning new songs. Host Jimmy Fallon was charmed by Benny during their pre-interview. He asked, "How did you discover that Benny could sing like this?" Jake explained that on that first morning on Lincoln Road, Benny had simply joined in at the right moment. He was always meant to be a performer. He just needed the world to hear him for the live performance they chose. Hallelujah. The studio fell silent as Benny's voice filled the air. Camera operators froze. Crew members stopped moving. Jimmy Fallon himself sat still with tears streaming down his face when the song ended. The audience rose to their feet. The ovation lasted longer than any in the show's history. The performance went viral instantly. Within hours, it had millions of shares online. The hashtag Benny the Parrot was trending. Worldwide fame also brought challenges. Animal rights activists began protesting, accusing Jake of exploiting Benny. They organized demonstrations outside venues with signs that read, "Free Benny and birds are not entertainers." Jake was devastated. He knew the bond he shared with Benny was built on love and respect. Benny loved performing and thrived on applause. To clear the air, Jake allowed a team of veterinary behaviorists to examine Benny. After weeks of observation, they reported that Benny showed no signs of stress. In fact, he was one of the happiest and most well-adjusted birds they had ever studied. Dr. Sarah Martinez, a leading animal psychologist, wrote, "Benny demonstrates the signs of a creature who has found his calling. He enjoys performing and shares a partnership with Jake built on trust and affection." Still, the controversy left scars. Some venues cancelled shows. Radio stations hesitated. Jake feared their career might be over before it had truly begun. Just when things seemed darkest, an unexpected ally stepped forward. Sir Paul McCartney released a statement in support. He said, "I have been making music for over 60 years, and what Benny and Jake create is pure magic. This is not exploitation, it is collaboration between two artists. Music has always been about breaking barriers, and these two are doing exactly that." His words changed everything. Other stars spoke out. Adele tweeted, "Benny's voice gives me chills. This is what music should be. It should touch your soul." The controversy faded. Their album, Songs from the Heart, debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200. It became the first album featuring a bird to ever top the charts. The album's success led to a world tour. Jake worried about international travel with Benny, but the parrot seemed to love every moment. Their first stop was London. The Royal Albert Hall sold out in advance. Celebrities and dignitaries filled the seats. The BBC broadcast the concert live. When Jake and Benny walked onto the stage, the energy shifted. Benny seemed regal, as if he understood the history of the venue. They opened with "Bridge Over Troubled Water." Benny's voice filled the hall with such beauty that people in the orchestra seats openly wept. But the true magic came in the encore Jake performed, a song he had written for Benny called Freedom Song. The lyrics told the story of a bird who found his voice and shared it with the world. Benny's harmonies lifted the melody higher, creating something beyond music. It became pure emotion. The ovation lasted 15 minutes. Critics called it the performance of a lifetime. When the Grammy nominations were announced, Jake and Benny received 5 nominations, including Album of the Year and Best New Artist. It was unprecedented. No animal had ever been nominated for a Grammy. The ceremony was held at the Staples Center. In Los Angeles, Jake wore his best suit. Benny wore a tiny custom bow tie designed by a famous fashion house. When their category was called, Jake held his breath. The Grammy for Best New Artist goes to Jake Rodriguez and Benny. The crowd erupted. They walked to the stage together. Jake's acceptance speech was emotional. He said, "This award is not just mine. It belongs to Benny, who taught me that music has no boundaries. It belongs to everyone who believed that beauty can come from the most unexpected." Places Benny, as if understanding the moment, sang, "We are the champions." In a flawless voice, the audience roared with laughter, applause, and tears. It was the highlight of the night. Success never changed Jake's values. He created the Benny Foundation, which funded music therapy programs for children's hospitals, elder care homes, and special needs schools. Benny visited these places regularly singing for patients and spreading joy where it was needed. Most. One visit stood out, a children's cancer ward in Chicago. A boy named Tommy, battling leukemia, had asked to meet Benny. When they entered Tommy's room, he was too weak to sit up, but his eyes shone bright. Benny perched gently on the bed railing and sang, "You have got a friend in me from Toy Story." Tommy smiled for the first time in weeks. Nurses later said his recovery accelerated after that visit. 6 months later, he was declared cancer. Free moments like these reminded Jake of their true purpose. Their music was not only entertainment, it was healing connection and hope. 3 years later, during a routine vet visit, Dr. Patricia Williams discovered something shocking. She found that Benny had a unique vocal chamber no parrot should possess. This extra chamber allowed him to create his human-like singing voice. She said, "Jake, this is medically impossible. It is as if Benny was designed to sing. I have never seen anything like this in 30 years of veterinary practice." The discovery added to Benny's mystique. People began calling him the miracle bird. Religious groups claimed he was divinely blessed. Scientists wanted to study him, but Jake refused. He told reporters, "He is not a specimen. He is my friend, my partner, and an artist." That is all that matters. Jake sits on the balcony of their Malibu home watching Benny sing as the sun sets over the Pacific Ocean. They have released 4 platinum albums, toured 6 continents, and touched millions of lives. Benny, now 8 years old, shows no signs of slowing down. His voice is stronger than ever. He sings in 7 languages and mimics over 200 artists. Their newest project is a children's album designed to help kids with anxiety and depression. Doctors are already praising the songs for their therapeutic power. Jake often thinks back to that morning on Lincoln Road when Benny first sang Hallelujah, a struggling street musician and a broken parrot. Nobody could have imagined that moment would spark a global phenomenon. As the sun dips lower, Benny begins singing, "What a wonderful world." Jake joins in with his guitar. Together they create music that drifts across the ocean breeze. Neighbors step onto balconies. Cars slow down on the highway. Even the waves seem to move in rhythm. Because real magic is not the impossible and made possible. Real magic is beauty made accessible to everyone. Jake and Benny had spent 5 years proving that magic is real, that it lives around us, that sometimes it comes in the most unexpected packages. The story of the parrot that accidentally became a famous singer is really the story of how music can break every barrier. Species, language, age, circumstance. Music reminds us of our shared humanity, and their song continues to play on.